We have the entire board present for business tonight. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Support.
Okay. Board. The senior alliance presentation tonight.
Aye.
Opposed? Those in favor of approving tonight's agenda as amended, please signify by saying
Aye.
aye. Opposed? Do I have to start over?
Just for Woody. Woody, you just got here. Sit down and chill for a minute.
And he's complaining already. Okay, I'm going to move on with tonight's agenda then. Let's open it up to public comment on tonight's agenda item. I see none offered. With that, we'll go into presentations. And Mr. Gentner, Mr. Frucci.
Lady and gentlemen of the board, I'm Jack Frucci, and I and Greg Genter are here to hopefully make you a little happier. We're here to talk about the Senior Alliance, informally known as the TSA, which takes care of a lot of our citizens and, of course, even more citizens off the island. But we're here to show that you, of course, have us as an expenditure. We want to show you how your money is being spent. So I handed out some information there. If you'll take the last sheet, when Greg gets up here, he's going to talk about that last sheet. The other ones are there just for some information you might be interested in. If you don't want to take them with you, turn them over to your clerk or somebody who can have them available so our citizens can pick them up at any time they would like to.
Bill, could you get that up on the overhead?
Okay. We're all set. Okay. One program that I want to talk about before we get to this one is a care program where we save citizens a ton of money. It's a program where we work with hospitals. Well, we all have heard about the prison recidivization rate. Most of us don't know there's a big hospital recidivism also. And this costs all of us a lot of money when our people come out of the hospital and have to go back into the hospital. Because every time they go in, there's more charges and more charges. So the government came up with a program a couple of 3 years ago that said if you can keep the people from going back in, they'll fund your program. And so we jumped into it and cut the rates way back on the people going back in, and so therefore we're saving them a lot of money. And what this entails is when a person gets ready to come out of the hospital, we interview them. Find out what doctors they're going to be working with, what medications they're supposed to have, et cetera, et cetera. Our job thereafter is to keep contacting those people to make sure they are taking their medication, make sure they are making their appointments to the doctors, and this in turn has saved a lot of money. So that's one of the things, and it's I guess, the one I'm most proud of that we do. I'd like to turn it over to Greg now.
So I had the pleasure of talking to Brian several years ago. He went over, if you look at the top of this report, Grosse Ile contributes to the Senior Alliance an amount of about $1,750. It's part of their local match to the TSA for services that we help provide. So I was kind of curious, so what do we actually do for the residents of Grosse Ile? So that's what this report is. This is our fiscal 2015 to 2016 services provided to residents of Grosse Ile. Care management is what Jack was just talking about. It's keeping people from having to go back in the hospital, monitoring their prescriptions and that kind of thing, getting them to their appointments. We serve 4 clients from Grosse Ile to the expense to us about $9,000. Case coordination and support for clients. There's 3 on Grosse Ile. Answering phone calls, and then the My Choice Medicaid waiver program is the Michigan program to provide home-based care services. So it's, again, to keep people from having to go into a nursing home or a facility of some sort. But in tune, taking a look at that, and then as we go down to the bottom, we look at home-delivered meals, 7,166 meals served on Grosse Ile last year. And the other thing, too, at the very bottom, you'll see that Senior Alliance Holiday Meals on Wheels. I don't know if people know, but Meals on Wheels doesn't serve to people on holidays. And as a result, real proud of that. But our employees have fundraising process that they go through during the year, and they're the ones that are going out. They're getting other volunteers, but the employees themselves serve meals on the holidays. So that's pretty nice. But for your $1,750, we in tune respond by providing about $80,000 worth of services last year to residents of Grosse Ile, which I will say surprised me when I asked for this report. But nonetheless, very happy to see that, and I want to know that your money's well spent. Very proud of our staff and their fiscal responsibility that they have towards the programs that they put on. So, should I ask any questions? Yes, you.
Thank you. I just want to quickly make a statement because I work for 2 primary care physicians.
Okay.
And we are also a big part of this increasingly monumental task of keeping people from repeat trips to the emergency rooms and going back to the hospital. It's a initiative by Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, CMS.
Yes.
And all of the commercial insurers are following suit because what CMS does, of course, they all follow. And so
some of them begrudgingly, maybe.
Begrudgingly,
yes,
but they,
yes.
They know that there's money to be saved or money to be made, right? So it's nice to see that there is an additional support network in place because one group can't do it all. And but I think our residents find out increasingly now that their insurance companies are having nurses calling them. Things called ACOs, accountable care organizations, are calling you after your stay in the hospital to make sure that you get your follow-up care, et cetera. And I think a lot of the service that we provide in our community helps get some people who can't get a ride to the clinic, makes that possible. My question to you, though, is at the beginning of this year, when the new administration took office in Washington, there was a lot of talk about Meals on Wheels being on the federal budget chopping block. Has that status changed?
As of right now, I mean, we actually took the program over from Wayne County because they were having difficulty with it, so we've taken that on. I think we're okay for right now. There are things that I guess are still up in the air. I know on some of the Medicaid waiver stuff that there are some programs that were not funded, and we're kind of taking that on in direct relationship with building programs directly with hospitals. And so there are things that we're doing to continue those without federal government. But we did reduce our staff based on federal funding by about 27 employees, unfortunately. But we're seeing it built back up. We've just signed several agreements for trials with different hospitals. So positive program. And we've already proven the program out very well. I mean, we can do it less than the hospitals have been able to do it. So.
Would it help to get more letters from residents to our representatives? Or
I think so, yeah. We dodged a bullet earlier with one bill that was in there, but I think we would always like to see positive reports coming back to our representatives, absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you. Mr. Frucci?
Pointed out that maybe we ought to make certain that everybody understands that Greg and I are volunteers. We're not part of the staff. We're just very proud of the staff.
Well then, thank you. Actually, that was good news. Let's move on to consent agenda. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda 17-033, which includes the minutes of the July 10th, 2017 regular meeting, the minutes of the August 14th, 2017 regular meeting, excuse me, the approval of the minutes from the executive closed session for legal opinion of August 14th, 2017, the bond release agreement, and the check registers dated through August 25th, 2017.
Support.
Okay, moved by Treasurer Van Oss, seconded by Trustee Budney. Among the board, are there any questions, comments on tonight's consent agenda? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of approving the consent agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None offered. That carries. We'll move into tonight's action items. Now I'll start with Mr. Bletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The first action item is the request for the authorization to accept applications for a police officer hiring list. The history on that is very simple. We have Sergeant Mark Relic, who is going to be retiring in December. Unfortunately, having served the better part of three decades, he has done a very, very good job, but he has indicated that after 25 plus years, it's time for him to look at retirement, and he's going to be sorely missed. The application process typically takes 3 to 4 months, and that is from the moment we solicit applications until we go through the interviews, the background screening, and typically at the 4-month mark, we're looking at applicants that we want to hire. Our last hiring, unfortunately, the delay from the time that we began the process until we vetted everybody, trying to make sure that we got the very best hire, meant that I believe it was our top 4 applicants had hired on with other departments. So the purpose of this process is to move forward and be able to take the cream of the crop if we can. And it's essentially a proactive step. I want to emphasize it is not a new position that's being created. We have the same number of officers a year from now as we have today. We're just deleting one name from the payroll and bringing in somebody else. Regretfully, is going to retire. Mark is a great officer, and everything that we've asked him to do, he's done very, very well. He's going to be sorely missed, but this is not a new position. This is simply a replacement. Chief Porcerelli is here to answer any questions anyone may have. Chief, you may have some comments.
Oh, I think you did a very fine job on that one. And yeah, we're all set if...
Chief, quick question just for public edification. A lot of our police officers retire after 25 years. Is that a norm? Because they're not 60 years old or 65 years old. What are some of the retirement norms for
that is public? Very much the norm, and actually it's kind of unusual to me because we're not in the system, but there's numerous departments, Wayne County Sheriff's, Michigan State Police, that have 20 and out. Now that is what it is. I'm not going to say, obviously it's a much lower rate when you go by formula. If you go out at 20 years, you go out at, I have 35 total, I have 32 in at gross seal. So there's a difference in your formula once you're, there for more years. But 25 is about right in the middle. Usually if you make it to the higher positions, that's where you see people in their latter 50s, if you will, some in their early 60s. Chiefs, deputy chiefs, but you don't really see people on the road taking MDOP complaints and arresting people at 60 years old. It's just not the norm down here. Maybe the norm somewhere else, but not down here. So 25 years And again, with our, the way our retirement is, they usually hear at least 25, at least.
I would indicate that Sergeant Relic came from another department.
Correct.
He had several years of experience when he came here, so in terms of law enforcement, he's at 30 years. In terms of service to Grosse Ile, 25, roughly.
But average age is usually in their middle 50s is when they leave, no matter what rank. So.
And then the follow-up for that would be the new officer coming in would now be under a different retirement.
Correct, different tier system in that, absolutely, yes. Correct, detective sergeant. Yes, what we'd do is that would put a vacancy in the detective bureau, and what we would do is then fill that, not necessarily though with a sergeant. We have a patrolman in there right now. Along with the sergeant, we may put 2 patrolmen in there. It doesn't mean a promotion in rank and pay when you go into the detective bureau. No, it's by your rank within the department. You could be assigned to any detail. If you were assigned to the DEA, if you were assigned to traffic, if you were assigned to detective bureau, you would still be road patrol. It's all by rank and pay is the same.
Other questions, comments for the chief? Did we catch who seconded this? Okay, we need.
Did we get a second? I'll
second it. Okay, so with no other comments, those in favor of authorizing the chief of police and the Grosse Ile Police Commission to advertise and accept applications for the position of a Grosse Ile police officer, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. That carries. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
I think we're going to lean on Mr. Budney.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. We have a motion based on the recommendation of the DPS Commission to authorize the Department of Public Services to place a sealed bid for a 2002 Ford E350 high cube van, televising van.
Okay, moved by Trustee Budney, seconded by Treasurer Van Oss.
Being that it's a sealed bid, I did pass out right before the meeting to you the amount, which we, don't want that out. We want to keep it sealed. But where this all comes from, and I'm going to ask John to step up, but both the federal and state waste, for us to get our wastewater discharge permits, they've required that the communities undertake an organized sanitary sewer cleaning and inspection program. We looked at it. Actually, we went out for bid to contract this out, and the bids came in from over $900,000 to over $1.2 million over a 5-year period. So with that, and our budget, we put in about $150,000 a year to do this. So we after getting those, we went out and said the commission decided that we should look into doing it ourselves in house, and the city of Trenton has purchased some new equipment for this use. They have this van that we're talking about is Trenton's used van, and if you look on the third page, you will see it's more than a van. The price, quite truthfully, the price that we're looking at to put the bid in, if we were to go out and just buy the reel and controls and the camera, we'd be spending. Looked like a good deal to us. We would like to do that with your approval.
Don't give away our bargaining position, Jim. So if this goes through, you're going to be learning some new skills, aren't you?
Yes, sir. Our department will be, yes.
Questions?
Just an additional tool in our toolbox because We're actually purchasing a brand new truck, actually, is what the DPS is looking at purchasing for the cleaning process. That new truck has a camera mounted to the cleaning reel, but it only gives you a straight-on view of the pipe. Now, the camera equipment that we're looking at purchasing on this purchase from Trenton has a pan and tilt capability, so we can turn the camera 360 degrees and see the entire pipe. We've needed that tool 4 times so far this summer. If we were to contract that on to another vendor, it would be about $3,000 each time we contracted with them. Absolutely, and like Mr. Budney said, if you were to purchase just the camera equipment, you're looking between $50,000 and $60,000 just for the camera.
Yeah, and so what we've done in the past is we've relied on Trenton, and they've been very, very good about coming over and letting us use their truck. But now that it's mandated both by the federal and the state that it has to be done, the complete system has to be done. So we're looking at doing the complete system every 5 years. You know, to bid it out to a contractor, you can see 900 to over $1 million. We thought buying our own equipment, training our people, possibly even getting one more employee would be done much cheaper.
O'Connor.
Short questions, and one is to Trustee Budney, without divulging the amount. But how was the bid determined, or which body determined the bid?
The DPS commission determined the amount.
And then I'd like to ask you, what kind of additional training are we talking about? Hours or courses or?
There's a 40-hour training class in Novi each one of us will have to take. And that way what that does is puts everybody on the same playing field. What I see is what you see, and that's what goes into your report. It's not an interpretation anymore. It's cut and dried. This is what it is. Then you have to do the appropriate repairs.
It's pipeline and manhole training certification approved by MDEQ. So when they get their certification, they will be able to look at the pipelines and the manholes and make good assessments.
A few of us visited Trenton, looked at the vehicle itself, and then all agreed that it was a well-maintained vehicle. Also had it analyzed by Downriver Diesel for its capabilities, and they said it's like brand new because they always kept it in the garage all winter long. So there's no rust, and it's in really good shape.
The camera.
The camera's a 99, and it was just rebuilt last month.
So it's.
It cost them like $3,100 to repair it last month.
Other questions, comments for Mr. Budney, Mr. Keim? Okay. None offered. Those in favor of following the recommendation of the DPS Commission to authorize the Department of Public Services to place a sealed bid for a 2002 Ford E350 high cube van, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered? Thank you.
Why don't I?
Why don't you pick?
Motion to adopt a resolution to abandon the existing water main on West River Road from Groseal Parkway to Church Road. Yeah. Do you want?
Resolution to abandon.
Yeah.
It's a long.
Do you want me to read? Yeah. Well, I can. You need to read the resolution. Okay. Okay. I'll do that before I. That's okay. I thought we did. I was hoping. All right. At a regular meeting of the Groseal Township Board of Trustees held at Groseal Township, located at 9601 Grow Road, Groseal, Michigan, 48138, on 28th day of August, 2017, the following resolution was offered by Mr. Van Oss. Whereas the Township of Groseal, through its Public Service Department, desires to complete the West River water main replacement from Groseal Parkway to Church Road project. whereas the existing water main lines lie underneath the existing gas lines running close to or outside of the right-of-way under the jurisdiction of the Wayne County, of the County of Wayne, and it would be a significant impact to residential front yards, and the existing water main is running under some trees and below an elevated hill shoulder. Whereas the township has requested an exception to the county's requirement. Specifically, the township has requested permission to leave the current water main line in the ground when new ones will be installed during the project. Whereas the county is willing to grant the request in exchange for the township's agreement to adhere to specific duties related to the current water mains. Now therefore be it resolved that the county shall grant the township exception to its requirement that unused utilities be removed in lieu of abandonment in place. Resolved that the county shall grant the contemplated exception to the township as related to the projects only, and be it further resolved that in exchange for the exception provided, the township shall: 1. Maintain ownership of the current water main lines. 2. Restore in a manner and condition acceptable to the county-owned road right-of-way suffering damages arising from the current water mains. 3. Under county permit, take action necessary to protect the public from potential injury or property damage arising from the current water mains. 4. Pressure grout the current water mains with flowable fill material. 5. Cause to be removed or reimburse the county for removal of reconstruction, widening, or relocation project. And 6. Hold harmless the county with respect to any and all incidents or claims arising from the current water mains. Signed by the township clerk.
This is what we did with the East River
This
Road.
is exactly what we did. It's just one part, one step in the process of doing the water main project in next year on West River Road. I'd ask Bill Kostick to come up if you want to add anything, Bill, to it. Bill is our DPS chair.
I think the biggest thing the county wants is they want the pipe filled with grout. So that's the biggest issue, and we're going to leave it in place. So.
And it is the same thing we did with East River.
Again, not being very knowledgeable about these things. Number 5, cause to be removed or reimburse the county for removal of reconstruction, widening, or relocation project. What exactly does that mean?
Well, if they were ever going to redo the road, widen the road, if they were ever going to do it, that we would have to incur the cost to remove, if it interfered with their project, which it wouldn't. They're not going to do anything with West River Road. We would have to pay the cost to relocate it at that time.
Anything else for
One
Mr.
more
Kostick?
thing, Bill. East River is not under the road, correct? East River's on the side. West River's going to be under the road.
Right. Okay. New Main, our proposal is to build it under the road.
Right.
And by doing so, the east lane or the northbound lane, we would reconstruct. We've asked the county, as you all know, if they would assist us with reconstruction of the southbound lane, which is the westerly lane. They said that they would consider it, and they're supposedly preparing what's called the local interagency agreement. We have to arrive at a suitable cost estimate for that, but we haven't seen the agreement yet. But our intent is to bid the project in December or January, where contractors are looking for work. And this has come about now because the permit request with all the plans are submitted to the county for approval. And that's why this is arising now. But hopefully we'll get that done, and then
One question to both you and Jim. Do you, excuse me, do you plan on looking at replacement of the entire West Road project all the way from Horse Mill to Bridge in this project?
This
And if
project
not,
goes
why
from the
not?
wastewater treatment plant to Church Road.
Why not? Why wouldn't you, are you going to consider perhaps doing the whole road? Why
It
not?
wasn't part of the cost estimate based on the water bonds we sold. This is water
I
related.
understand that, but
No money for it at this
Yeah,
point.
the redoing of the road comes from the fact that we have to go under the road to do the water main. Obviously, redoing the northbound lane, we didn't have the money in the project to do the southbound lane, but so we approached Wayne County, and hopefully they will do that. But it was for the water main that the whole idea of the project. It wasn't a repaving project per se.
Yes, and there's two other issues. We hope to improve the drainage, but if you were to go on the east side of the road, and where most of the homes are, attempt to build a water main there, even if you attempted to bore the water main, there are at least 50 very mature trees you'd encounter, not to mention the driveway obstructions with some of the undulation that occurs ground for various driveways. You'd spend a ton of money restoring driveways and grades on yards and so forth. So this is a much, hopefully, more efficient solution.
Other questions, comments from Mr. Kostick? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of adopting the resolution previously read to abandon the existing water main on West River Road from Grosse Hill Parkway to Church Road. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. That carries. Thank you. Notice how I avoided
Yeah, I noticed how you got out of that.
moving on to action item number 4, Mr. Treasurer.
yes, based on the recommendation of the Airfield Commerce Park Manager and Commission, Township hereby authorizes Mike Duker to sign a contract number 2017-0660, rehabilitate runway 1735, emergency repairs number 3 between the Township of Grosse Hill, Michigan.
Support.
Okay, moved by the Treasurer, seconded by Trustee Budney.
Go ahead, Mike, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. This is essentially the same contract the board has seen for the previous board has also seen for the last 2 years. The way this works is it's with MDOT Aeronautics. It's kind of a backwards contract. Normally we approve it and then expense. This is a reimbursement for repairs that we've done to our secondary. Now that our primary runway has been redone, this is repairs to our secondary runway, which we continue to have pavement deterioration problems with, as well as our taxiways. So the airport expenses these emergency repairs or other repairs up front, and then we get reimbursed later on when the funds get released from MDOT Aeronautics. So this is essentially us approving the contract for our repayment. You can see there in the description the total spent. This was really from last year, and we're getting caught up. $51,725. The state has a hard cap at $50,000. They extended it to the full amount. So our share of that is $5,173. The state will be reimbursing us the $46,552. I made a note to the commission. I'll know more in about a month. I think our gravy train on this, we negotiated very hard with the pavement deterioration problems that we're seeing. It has to do with the spec of the concrete. But we negotiated very hard with the state to get these reimbursements so we didn't have to expense this on our own. It's kind of pretty much a lifeline to keep this runway on board. I don't know how much longer the state's going to be willing to do this. I'll know more about that in a month. If they're not willing to continue to do that, it's going to force the commission and the airport committee to start looking at our options long term with that runway and how long we want to keep it alive for and on board, or if there's other repair options we haven't looked at. So that's something that may be coming down the pipeline, but we'll know more from our meetings with the states. Just one other final note on this. The reason it's a 90-10 split is because it's a contract with the state and ourselves. Our bigger projects, the federal one that we just did for our runway project is normally a 95-5 split. So that's the federal project differences. We get a little bit better of a share difference there. But because this one's so small and the state wanted to keep it in-house with their different pot of money.
Yeah, just explain if MDOT or Michigan Aviation decides that they don't want to participate in this any further, how much pressure can we expect FAA to put on them?
In terms of doing the repairs?
Yeah.
I don't anticipate a lot. I think that's going to open the conversation up with all three parties about what the future of that runway is, if we need it or not, and what kind of funding options, if they are interested in continuing to have that expense, what's the future goal in either redoing the runway with the FAA or what options we have for funding for that, because obviously we're not going to be able to.
Right.
That's a large expense.
And that's a point I want to make.
Yep.
If MDOT or Michigan Aviation decides not to do that, we will pressure the FAA to do that. And if they choose not to do that, then we'll pressure them into negotiations as to what will be the life of runway 17, right?
Correct.
All right. Thanks.
Ms. O'Connor.
Okay, so that begs the question, if at some foreseeable point we no longer have that runway, how does that affect the health of the airport? We continue to operate the airport without that runway?
Sure. Yep. We have our primary runway 422, which we just redid. Our runway 1735 is our secondary runway. The wind favors our longer runway and primary runway 422, so a majority of the landings are on that. The airport's not going to be a total loss for the airport. For safety factors, it is nice to have a secondary. But the long-term outlook of that runway is something to be negotiated, because it would still fall under the terms that we've accepted with the FAA. So whether they release that and we can sell the property, or if we want to continue, maybe we want to let the property sit and see if funding becomes available down the road. There's a lot of decisions down the road that'll have to be made by the commission and committee, and obviously we'll communicate that with the board if the process starts. But again, right now we're repairing this and patching and using the lifeline, so I should know more with the state here in a couple of months, but I suspect that this well may be drying up maybe next year or this year.
Add to that, if they choose to not fund that runway and ultimately decide not to operate that runway in the ultimate discussion, which is quite a ways down the road, we need to have some strong negotiations with them, simply because our maintenance requirements do not end. We still have an area that we have to maintain, and we certainly do not want to do that if we're going to get no residual from that. And it could have an impact on the runway. There could be a customer or two that decides, this is a great place with two runways, with one runway, I just want to play it. That would all be part of the negotiation, because we're obligated to maintain this as an airport due to the funding that they've already done, and they just completed a $6 million project, so our liability's out there ways now.
Other questions, comments? Mr.
Supervisor,
Fletcher.
I'd like to indicate that I had the great privilege today of getting a tour of both runways. Mike took me out there. Mr. Duker gave me the tour of the runways. The pictures don't do it justice. They have done a terrific job maintaining, putting Band-Aids and duct tape on this. But I think driving on it, you can see, as Mr. Van Oss has indicated, it does have a life of limited duration. And going over to 422 was just night and day. I had an opportunity to see the hangar, as well as a tour of the facilities at the east end of Hangar 1, and I am absolutely impressed with what that commission is doing and what Mr. Duker individually is doing. They have done a terrific job. I'm very, very convinced that if there's any way of saving it or finding money, Mr. Duker will find it, because the projects I saw today are just absolutely what I would hope and would expect, and he's doing a terrific job, as is the commission. I want to say thank you for that, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Other questions, comments? None offered. Those in favor of following the recommendation from the Airfield Commerce Park Manager and the Grosse Ile Airport Commerce Park Commission The Grosse Ile Township Board hereby authorizes Mike Duker to sign contract number 2017-0660, rehabilitate runway 1735, emergency repair number 3, between the Township of Grosse Ile and the Michigan Department of Transportation. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None offered? Sign away, Mike. That concludes tonight's action items. We'll move on to the clerk's report. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Supervisor, make sure Woody, can you hear me back there? First thing I want to say is, obviously, Sharon's not here today, but Brian Friel is here and taking the records of the minutes and keeping me in line. As I say, we are hiring election inspectors for the November election. If you are interested, willing, and able, give Brian or Sharon a call, an email at the Township, find us on the Township website, and sign up. We do pay, and we do feed you, and we will train you because we have new election equipment, similar to what you're used to using, but updated and more secure. As always, the value of our system is that it's both electronic and old school. There will always be a paper ballot to go back to. My second thing is I had an educational opportunity with my young son. Kieran is 17. He's a rising senior. Next week he'll be starting his senior status at the high school. He is the incoming president of the High School Interact Club. Part of the Rotary, as Ted knows. And he was very interested in learning more about how our system, our political system works. And he hears me and our family talk a lot about healthcare and healthcare costs and what's going to happen to healthcare. Obviously, he's not living under a rock. He knows that there's a lot of discussion and debate about the status of healthcare in this country. And so we went to a town hall meeting sponsored by Representative John Conyers. He invited Senator Bernie Sanders to speak. Our Congresswoman Dingell was there. George Manz's daughter was there because she works for Representative Conyers. So it had a little bit of a town feel. There were quite a few Grosse Ile residents, actually, that I spotted in the crowd. There were about 2,000 people came to this meeting. And it was a little bit more of a political rally than a meeting, I guess. And so there wasn't, a big debate about policy. But the beautiful thing that came out of it is that my son started asking some very pointed questions. And he's wondering what condition the healthcare system will be in for his generation, and what will his burden be as we age. And what will the future hold? And so it's very interesting. And of course, for the township, it's a big issue for us as well. Not only do we have an aging population in our community, and we're trying to encourage young families to move here, but during our budget conversations, you heard us talk a lot about the sustainability of healthcare costs in our budget. And so there are a lot of different options that are being pursued, but I think the key here is that people start informing themselves and start engaging in that conversation. As you know, I work for 2 physicians, and this is something we face daily. A lot of our patients have Medicare plans or Medicare Advantage plans, and as I mentioned during the Senior Alliance conversation, these plans are pushing very hard and using the data now that's available to them through these electronic medical records to really keep an eye on our health and our health care. And the surest way that they can see to drive down the costs while still hiring all of these bureaucrats to do the legwork with the data, is to keep us out of the hospital, make sure we visit our doctors and get our annual preventive care and so forth. But so I just wanted to bring that up because I think it is a subject that affects all of us on more than one level, not just as consumers of health care, but also as taxpayers on the federal and the local level. So I would encourage you to get involved in the discussion and read. There's a lot being written now. Some of it is very politicized, but some of it is actually legitimate policy and analysis. And it's going to take a good analysis for us to find a solution that we can all live with. So to that end, that's my clerk's report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you. The investment report is available online with a total breakdown of all investments. The exact July numbers aren't available today. I'll have them at the next meeting. 2017 summer tax bills are due in about 2 weeks, September 14th, 2017. Your payment options include mail. You can online banking payments, in person at Township Hall, on or after hours. After hours, you can use the drop box at your Grosse Ile branch of PNC Bank or the Public Services Credit Union. Charge payments are taken with a convenience charge of 2.65% for credit cards and a $2.95 flat fee for debit cards. These payments can be made online at grosseile.com. Deferments for extensions of the tax bill, for extension of the due date, are available for those who qualify. Certain persons with incomes of under $40,000 deferment must be filed with the Treasurer's Office by September 14th, and approved deferments will extend the December 16th due date until, September 14th due date until February 14th, 2018. To date, we've collected $3,401,221 and change. So that's about 28%. So we're going to be really busy in the next 2 weeks because generally we end up with the final number in the high 90s. Our total school collection was $821,000. Our total county collections was $1,860,000, and Township $718,000 for a total of $3,401,000 and change.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Madam Clerk, you had one addition.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I apologize. I just wanted to say, with the election in November and kids going to college, if you are a newly registered voter and you want to vote by absentee ballot when you're at campus, if you have not voted in person before, it's imperative that you come down to Township Hall and present yourself with ID to Brian or Sharon in our clerk's office, because until we have a connection face to signature, we cannot issue you an absentee voter ballot. So at some point before you apply for that absentee voter ballot to vote at school, you do need to present yourself at the township. Correct, Brian? Okay. So I know a lot of the kids are getting ready to leave. And so that's a very important thing that we often forget to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to trustee liaison reports. Mr. Malvesto.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Mr. Ream's going to put something up on the overhead for me. Thank you. Well, it's that time of year again, and our volunteer fire department is putting on a golf outing and a steak roast. The date is going to be September 23rd. It's $100 per golfer, which includes the steak roast, or you can just get a steak only for $50. There will be 2 drink tickets that that come along with your greens fees. And there will be a 50-50 raffle and a live band afterwards. Now, you're going to ask me where it's at. It's going to be at the, let me get it, the West Shore Golf and Country Club. It'll be a shotgun start going off at 1 p.m. And to become part of this, to play at that date, the number to call would be 734-675-5658. You can talk to either Chief Murdoch, Fire Marshal Beaudry, or John Camilleri. They'll be glad to help you. So if you want to take part in it, please give them a call. Also, for the current year, there have been 333 rescues to date and 94 fire calls. Very active group of firemen. They, as always, we depend on them, and they're there for us when we need them at the most. Second of all, on the 19th, the day of the garage sale, the BPAC Commission, Bike Path Commission, had their third annual Walk the Path. We were at the Commons. We grilled and served almost 100 hot dogs that particular day. Barry Van Eglen was our entertainment for the day, and talk about an entertainer who gets everybody involved. There were a number of ladies that were singing along, and there were a bunch of kids. It turned out to be a really beautiful day. That was also the day of the Wayne State Barradur, and about 10:30 in the morning, the first group of, it appeared to be almost 70 riders. And when I say they came in a flash, they were there and gone in the blink of an eye. It was really impressive. Just the kind of speeds they must have been pedaling 20 miles an hour or better to get down to Grosse Field, because they still had to go back to Detroit. And they showed up. We were there from 11 o'clock till 2 o'clock, and they were coming in small groups all morning, all afternoon. It was good to see them. But the Bike Path Commission wants to thank everybody that showed up. We were very appreciative that you were there. And that's my report. But if you, again, for the golf outing, call that number, and they'll get you signed up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malvesto. Mr. Budney.
Yes. As of right now, there is no ZBA meeting for August or September. Our next DPS meeting is September 12th. We will continue, as we started to do, talk about roads. We would very much appreciate input from the public on it. I mean, we'll have, as we go along, we will have structured meetings to go over it, but from this point out, we'd like to hear anything from anybody on it, because it is an important topic for this community. And lastly, I'm happy to report that we have received our $500,000 from Wayne County for our road improvement projects. And that's all I have.
And that is good. Thank you, Mr. Budney. Mr. Bletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Again, I sit on two commissions. The Open Space Greenways did not have a meeting in July and August because of the summer break, but we are returning to business on Tuesday, September 5. We're going to be reviewing the proposed proposals regarding property acquisition. Second commission I'm on, have the pleasure of serving, is the Police Commission. We are moving forward with the final draft on a 5-year plan. It's being drafted by Bob Zalasko. I know that he has recently met with Chief Financial Officer in the Township, Ham Darsnick, and Bob tells me that his projections and Ann's projections are within a fraction of where the difference between the two of those is just absolutely minimal. So that is good news when you have two people coming to the same conclusion. Second thing is, as we noted earlier with the hiring process, in the past we've had as many as 50 applicants for a police officer position. Last time we had 15. So the Township Police Department typically interviews at least twice, sometimes 3 times, and try to take the very best possible candidate that's available. It is a lot of work. They take it very seriously. We look at it as a 30-year commitment, and the goal is to get the best man or woman for the position so that they can continue to serve the community. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Bletcher. Mr. Nelson.
I am the liaison, of course, to the Recreation Commission and the Festival Commission. I have several announcements for you. The next Festival Commission meeting will be Wednesday, September 20th at 7 p.m. Number 2, the next Community Recreation Commission meeting will be held Thursday, September 28th at 7:30 p.m. The Water's Edge Pool will be closed for the season September 5th. The pool will be open Labor Day from 1 to 6 p.m. Fall specials at the golf course for seniors and students starting September 5th. Check the website for rates. Recreation Department is now accepting applications for winter storage at the marina. Call the Rec Department for more information. Number 6, channels will be in your homes by the end of the week. You can register for fall programs online and at www.girlsrecreation.com. And last but not least, the new floor is complete at Centennial Farms. Call the Recreation Department to book your next event. Days and times are filling up fast for the fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Assorti, an attorney's report. Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have a few brief items. The previous meeting, I reported to the board and the community that we are in the process of reviewing consultant services, and I just wanted to follow up. We did have a study session prior to this meeting where we did review the engineer services, and in our next meeting, like to report to the community, we will be reviewing the audit services and the planning consultant services. Item number 2, Township Supervisor Loftus will be discussing some details about the County Parkway Bridge, but I wanted to report to the community at the suggestion of Clerk O'Connor that we dedicate a specific page on our website for bridge matters and in essence turn it into a bulletin board. So we're in the process of putting that together. So thank you for that suggestion. And last item, if you recall before the previous meeting, Communications Director Ted Fournier came in and instructed us on the boardroom, the microphone use, the enunciation, pushing the right button at the right time. That helped a lot, but we also learned that we had a Comcast problem, so some of the meetings were terrible sound. And we apologize for that. What happens, we know what we're sending out of this building is strong and good, but then it goes to the cable company, goes to their system, and then back out to the residents. So sometimes the computers, and it's not acceptable. We're meeting with their governmental affairs representatives. It's been happening too much, and I apologize to the community for that. So if a meeting is broadcast, it's not working properly, we're just going to pull it down. So we're in process, and we certainly hope that this doesn't continue. So our apologies to the board as well as to the residents. So, and with that, nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ream. I'll pick it up from there. Let's see, the good stuff, the fun stuff. Our new DDA director is the most energetic woman I think I've ever had the privilege of working with. She wears me out just listening to her, but I'll just reflect on, we had dog days Friday, probably 40 or 50, I'll say families, walking dogs up and down the street. Miss Darsnick was out there, I was out there, pushed my grandson around. It was a great turnout. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of support from the businesses, and it was just good to see a lot of people who otherwise might not have taken the time to see what's going on Macomb Street, just that being just a beautiful summer afternoon. A lot of fun. Angela cooked that one up. And the next one she's got, and you're seeing the signs throughout the community, is to paint the town red. This is going to be a homecoming not only for the high school, but for the whole community. She has stuff planned every day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We all know the homecoming parade is Friday afternoon. The game is that night. There is a Tour de Ile, I think that's Saturday. There's stuff going on all weekend. Most of it's on Macomb Street. So if you make a point of swinging by and seeing what's going on. I think it'll be, it's just fun, and it's close to home, and you don't have to cross the bridge to do it, which will lead me to my final topic. Trying to get factual information out to you about the bridge. And as Ms. O'Connor and the manager said, we're going to set up a page, an official page on the township website. Hopefully not have to rely on Facebook anymore, although I love to read it to see what rumors are out there, what I need to investigate, and we will put the actual official answers on the township website. The current rumor that got my attention was that the bridge is going to close in April. It's going to be closed for 2 years. I don't know where that came from because it didn't come from Wayne County and it didn't come from us. So consider that a rumor. It may or may not happen, but there's no indication right now that that's going to be the case. We're looking for a combination of the reports. We spoke to the new Deputy Director of Wayne County DPS, Mr. Larry Young. So consultants are completing their inspection report, including underwater inspections. We're expecting the report compiled and released at the end of September. We will be in the room when this is revealed and evaluated. Phase 1 is going to be the foundation, which is causes some concern right now. Possibly start construction in March. It depends on the scope of the project and the dollars available. Looking for every dollar we need to get it done right, get it done permanently. And this keeps coming up, there are no plans anywhere for a replacement bridge. This is the bridge we're going to have. There's not going to be a fixed clearance bridge anytime, anywhere. I won't say it's completely impossible, but it's about as close to impossible, unfundable as it can be. So that's our bridge. We've got a commitment from Wayne County to restore it to full operability. We're going to work with them to make sure that happens and start looking for updates on the Grocio website. With that, open it up to public comments. I'm sorry, Mr.
Brian, real quick. Did I read in the paper they're replacing one of the bridges in Huron Township, the one in Waltz, for $5.1 million? Maybe somebody's confused with that being replaced. They're also replacing a bridge in Gibraltar that is 16 zillion years old too. So I don't know if they have the right information as to what bridge they're talking about. So
there was a flurry of bridge inspections. And there was a reason for that, but there was a flurry of bridge inspections, and the results were not always encouraging. So, yeah, there are a couple bridges closed, couple scheduled for replacement. As I said 2 weeks ago, this bridge originally was built in 1873. It rebuilt by Wayne County in 1931, and it's a steel bridge. If it's maintained properly, it will last forever. There is no fatigue life on ferrous metals if it's built to capacity. So we'll just find the dollars, find the contractors do it, get it done right, and this will remain a great place to live. But if you stick around for Paint the Town Red, you don't have to cross the bridge to have a good time. With that, I will open up to public comment. Mrs. Walker.
Don't mind, Tom. Thorpe Court. Just to remind everybody, we have 2 more weeks left of summer, at least officially summer, and tomorrow night and then 1 more week, and our We Kayak will be done for the 5th season. It was a huge success. The last, the big one was going to the big paddle was going out to the lighthouse. We had 19 people try, 15 people succeeded, and we had over 3,100 people looking at the Facebook page, which was fantastic for us. We only have about 700 people on the thing. So that was a very exciting time, and we are going to put up a video when I finish it. Secondly, like I said, everybody come, it's going to be great. Secondly, Paint the Town Red, the dog thing, all that stuff is great, but I was wondering, basic needs are pretty important to people. And what might bring people down to Macomb Street, and this is just my opinion, and I think some people might share it, is having a bathroom on Macomb Street, a public bathroom. You want women to go somewhere, you better have a damn bathroom. You don't have one, they're not coming. And if you want to be, people walk here, they ride their bicycles, and 4 miles is a long time, and ladies have needs, and men have needs, especially as they get older. Let's all be honest with you. And I just was thinking that, maybe, I know this is expensive, but I know that parties cost a lot of money, and they're fleeting. Bathrooms last forever. It's not glamorous. It's not pretty. But you're seeing that down on Biddle Avenue and Ecorse, they're redoing their bathrooms for the public. I don't know. I have no idea how it'd be done. I would imagine it would only be open 6 months of the year. But it would be something that people could walk down. Because we see people all the time. We go out to dinner at the few restaurants that are left. And you see people, and you're thinking, they got a long haul to get home.
You're not falling on deaf ears. When we first started planning, when we acquired the property at Lyons, that was in the original plan.
Right.
We had 170,000 off the top of my head.
I have
capital
no
improvement.
Yeah.
We put out we were going to develop it in stages, but the dollars just came in way too high. But we're still holding that capital reserve, adding to it. And that is in the plan.
That's
eventually
great. I had no idea.
Absolutely, I want people on Macomb Street. I want moms pushing strollers. I want that facility.
And I hope you also want Wi-Fi. I've been preaching this thing for 7 years. Anybody going to listen to me finally? 7 years saying you need it. That's what people want. You can't go anywhere. It's a basic need anymore. I think the government's even thinking of giving it away for free because, you like that, Uta. But they're talking about it as a basic necessity of life, and I think those two things, and the Wi-Fi would be the easiest, the cheapest, and all that. You might get some people down there. Just my suggestion, and again, I hope I see everybody kayaking tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Other public comment? Mr. Heil. Oh, sorry.
No, come on up. I was just going to piggyback on what Kathy said. My favorite town in Michigan is Glen Arbor, and that business community got together and took an empty lot behind Art's Tavern and turned it into a garden park with the centerpiece is a public bathroom, and they use the bathroom to promote local businesses. So the soaps in there are from the Bay Lavender Company, and they have a room like a door that opens that has then all the flyers and brochures for the region, and it's a relatively small space. I think each facility only has 2 or 3 stalls, 1 handicap and 2 regular. I don't know, like you said, what that costs, but this is a tourist community, and I don't know that we're a tourist community, but we do like to take care of ourselves, and we'd like to make that easier for people. So thank you, Kathy, for that suggestion.
All right, top that, Mr. Heil.
My original purpose here, because I am with the Civic Association, is to ask the question if comment was or dialogue between Bridge Authority and our township was taking place, and of course that has been answered. And
every day.
And I'm saying thank you for that. We feel that that's a. Can you hear me here?
Barely, but
yeah. Is this better?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, if you can hear me fine, it just didn't seem right. The idea that we publish this on a page, I think, is significant because our purpose is basically to have people who are informed and people who have dialogue. And I think that is where the main gist of the effort is involved. I know that some of that dialogue that you might see would seem false news or baloney or fluff. You were, speaking of that earlier in the previous meeting, the study session. But I think there's value in that as well, because then you know where your public's mind is at, and that gives you an opportunity to respond. I'm of the belief, and I'm speaking for myself, that we have on our plate a lot of different issues that are very tough to chew on. They're going to cost a lot of money. And those things are going to be things that people might find very difficult to accept. It isn't a matter of whether we like those issues. If we can at least understand them, we're going to be better prepared to accept them. And I think that we provide with these things a means to help accomplish that. We also can probably, if we phrase it properly, find some creativity in finding ways to do things better. That would help us too.
Thank you, Mr. Heil. Mr. Clark.
Woody Clark, Park Lane. Okay, of the $35,000, how much has been given back from the skating park that you gave money to?
I don't understand. What's the question?
No money back has come back from us from the money that we gave for the people to do it. Are you going to put any pressure on those people, or are we just going to roll over and pay it?
Okay, rec directors on it.
Okay. Also, I asked you last week, 2 weeks ago, about a list of people you gave raises to, and names, and the amount, and the total amount. Do you have it?
I do.
I have it.
After the meeting, I'll be glad to give it to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Clark. Other comments from? We don't have much other public present. Anybody else? None offered. Mr. Budney.
So moved.
Second? All right. Well, those in favor of adjourning the meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We'll call it adjourned at 47. Thanks, everyone, for coming tonight, and see you in 2 weeks.